Hello and welcome to another episode of the Thought Leadership Podcast and live show. Today it's episode 32. It's going so fast. I'm having such a great time with amazing guests on, and I hope you're enjoying the show as well. And Andrea is here with me today. My guest today is this amazing superhuman making change happen in sustainable economy, circular economy, making things that are so important for businesses. So Andrea Orsag, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Daria. Super looking forward to another great conversation with you.
Oh, me too. Andrea and I met a couple of years ago in the conference, and we have been keeping each other, in our spheres throughout the years. And as I saw what Andrea was up to, I really wanted to bring her to this conversation today. So just kind of give you a background what she is working with. Andrea is a specialist in sustainable strategy. They have an advisory that helps B2B and B2C companies to really create sustainability and circular economy as part of the bigger mission. And as you know, in our academy, we really care about the values and ethics behind what we are doing. So I really believe that we can learn a lot from Andrea when it comes to how do you create something that is sustainable, circular, as part of your core values in the company. So thank you for being here again. And I want you to just share a bit for your consultancy, for your advisory mission C, what is the bigger mission?
Yeah, so we do have this big mission to help accelerate the transition towards circular economy and to do that on a global scale. So for that, we really need all the change makers, all the leaders, or the people who are really conscious and thinking about making a positive impact to help on board and realize that only together we can really achieve this goal.
Absolutely. And for someone who's listening or watching, if you would define circular economy, what does it actually mean?
Mhm. I personally see circular economy as a perfect new model of how to make this world thrive, the planet that is thriving, and also people that are thriving. So, just to really give a very brief background, right now we're functioning within a linear economy, right? It's economy based on we take resources, we create some products, we use those products, we throw them away, and then the circle repeats. We're constantly shopping for new clothes, for new furniture. Food is a part of that.
Yeah.
Anything pretty much. And the whole point is that way we're wasting a lot of resources because
Yes.
a lot of energy is needed when we take them out of the nature of the ground. Than when we actually create a product, and a lot of energy is wasted when we just throw it away because there's still quite a valuable resource. And very often, many things don't really get used properly. The fact that it's end of the use for someone doesn't mean that this thing is completely done. So the circular economy is really looking into how to get better value out of what we already have, how to avoid waste creation, and how to design better, how to share better, how to utilize products and services way better than we do right now.
Yeah, amazing. Great. I mean, that's a great way to explain it, of course. And for the reason why I think it's so interesting and why I wanted to bring you on board today is that our community, the listeners, the rising thought leaders are all expert in their field. They're founders, leaders. And there's a misconception, I believe, that we have to wait to be big enough to integrate the circular economy as part of our, core values as a company. And I would love to, if you could share a bit, how do you go about if someone is starting off and if they're a founder expert and they're like, I have this big mission, and because we work with visionary leaders, and they might have a small mighty team and they might not even have a product but a digital product, but how can they apply the principles of circular economy from day one of their mission?
This is such a great question, Daria. And also, what you mentioned before, that you assume or you have a feeling that many people think circular economy or sustainability, generally speaking, is something super abstract. I
Yes.
actually do see this quite often. You have quite a lot of companies, whether we're talking about small ones or bigger ones, talking about it, watching what the others are doing. But for some reason, waiting, like what needs to be done, how we don't want to be the first ones. We really want to have all the lessons learned. And once it will become mainstream, we will probably hop on board. But the thing is, circular economy and sustainability as a value, this is something that's everyone right now, right here. It's about how we do things. So talking about whatever, however small or big the business is, it starts with a core value. It's not about making a business and then thinking like, oh, how I could tag along on this, as some people still see it, sustainability trend. I do believe it's not a trend, it's here to stay. It's our future in the end we're talking about. But rather really thinking about, okay, what is it that I really want to do? What are the problems that I'm solving and how I can do it that I'm not creating negative impact, whether it's environmental, whether it's social impact. How can I actually really serve my community, my target audience, and embed sustainability directly into the strategy, into the core? That should be the question we should be asking when starting a business or running a business.
Amazing. And how could that look like? If you think about, if I am a conscious leader and I want to make a good impact and I want to imply this, what are the, actions I can take on tools I can use in order to really make sure that already as a role model for myself and for, showing up at my best, what can I do?
Yeah, so there are many different ways. If we take, for instance, people who are coaches, who are consultants, right? You can think about, okay, what are actually the clothes I'm wearing when I'm talking to the clients, how I'm traveling when I'm presenting, who I'm working with. It's also about deciding like, who do you want to align yourself with? So from a personal kind of like an individual point of view, now when we're talking about entrepreneurs and change makers, you can really think about my own footprint. Of course, you can really start looking into what is it that you can change. Can you more carefully reassess what you're wearing, because you're presenting your personality and your mission by the clothes you wear, right? Wear the change, be the change. So you can start over there. And this is really kind of like a small step you can take. Then really think about who are you working with? Are those clients actually the ones that are creating a positive environmental and social impact or not? Do you really want to be linked to the people who are not doing that? You can start, of course, at your home, but really focusing on a business. If you're building, you mentioned that there are some people who are having digital products, for instance, you can really start assessing what's the impact of your digital products or services. How does your office look like? What is in the end the goal of your product? What servers are you using? What is the information? If it's, for instance, a piece of hardware, so let's say it's a digital product that you're offering to your target audience, is it repairable? Is it designed so it will last long? Is it something that more people can use? Is it something they have to purchase, or is it something they could share with people around? So for instance, one of the business models within circular economy, and there are many others, so just really picking up this one, do you really need to own this device, or is this something you need to have access to? A very simple example, not all of us need drill on daily basis or projector, right?
Yeah.
And if you have any specific example, of course, happy to focus on that one. But the point is, whether you are offering services, you can think about, what I'm doing right now. It always starts with a self-assessment, where I am right now, where I would like to go, what's my own footprint. And if you are really looking at what's the footprint of my business, think about, okay, how I'm creating value and how is this value impacting environment or society. So for instance, again, if you have products, where are you sourcing all those resources? Where are you getting materials from? Do you know? Do you know, are those people fairly paid? Is it from safe environment, from renewable resources? Are you utilizing wind energy while producing it or not? I do believe for every single person, there's something to do, and we can start already today.
Absolutely. And I mean, for the ones listening and watching, you can just go back the last, couple of minutes and do that as an assessment, like a self-assessment, and maybe go through that a day and check, if you do a 360 approach and you go from your clothes, like Andrea mentioned, to, your makeup, the clients, I think clients is a great example. I always tell our members to really choose and pick clients that are in alignment of the values and ethics, because it's so important in the long term that you are, really listening to what matters to you, and your clients are also, you're helping them. You're creating a ripple effect. And is that the effect that you want to create? Is that the change you want to create? So 100%, it's a big choice. Maybe choosing what conferences that you speak at, what partnerships you go into. I mean, only that by itself, as being a consultant, even if you're alone, your choices can be conscious, and that in itself, can create a circular economy, because you're starting to really reflect on, like you mentioned, the travel, you mentioned that, the offices. I loved also what you said. I'm kind of recapping here. I love what you also mentioned about choosing things, like, are there things that you can reuse or maybe rent that you don't need to own? That's a great advice. Let's talk about, this is for someone who's kind of, starting up, who's consultant, coach, or founder, who's working alone. They might be experienced, but there are a lot of people all working alone, even as a thought leader, rising thought leader. But the ones who have a team, after a couple of years, usually they integrate a smaller team that is supporting their mission. How can you integrate the circular economy and the concept, the mission, the values that you mentioned here, if you are onboarding a team?
I think it's very important to make it very clear that, again, this is not something nice to have or something you would like to link to your mission, your product and services, but to really make it very clear that the sustainability is crucial to what you do. So it's actually a value at the heart of your whole strategy. It needs to be right there at the core. And keeping that in mind, actually, according to research, especially younger people these days are super keen to work for companies that create a positive impact. So already over there, it's a plus. But to make it more specific, let's say you're a consultant starting a small consultancy firm, right? So you're growing your team, and most likely you're providing office supplies, such as like laptops to your people or mobile phone. So already over there, you can think about like, okay, are we getting new things? How long do I want them to use? Do we have some nice agreements or places where we can repair it instead of just tossing it away and purchase a new one? And this is really a simple one. Then it's, of course, like the offices. If you're going to be sitting together in an office, like, where is this office? What type of building we're renting this office in? What is the energy that the whole office is powered by? What is the energy efficiency there? And then when we're talking about circular economy, there are some beautiful concepts, how you can really prove that you're supporting this whole transition towards this new economy, so to say. For instance, you need to get completely new furniture, or really to actually even add value and more character to your office and to your team. If you find a nice vintage one, rent it, or you rent something, so you can actually change the interior after a certain period of time. You can have it customized. You can really find something that's been here with us already for some time and make it your own. You can use designer artists to paint it in a specific style. It could even be like with your logo. So the thing is to realize we don't necessarily need to get all the time just something new. We can really use what we have, play around with it. And then, of course, you said it right. It's about who do you work with? Of course, on a bigger picture, it's also like, who do you vote with, right? Who do you want the politicians to be? Because this is then influencing the politics, what direction we're going as a country, or like as the European Union, or as the whole world in the end, depending on different organizations. At the same time, you're voting with your value, and already the fact that you're very carefully choosing who do you work with matters a lot.
Yes, great advice. So to kind of recap the team, what I see here is that you can really allow, in your office, of course, today, as we are speaking, most people work remotely, but even, if you're adding value to your, you give bonuses like to your team with giving them a phone, giving them a laptop, choosing what type of laptops you give. But I also think that there is a question of, like you mentioned, young people today, they like to be involved in a bigger mission that is aligned from the very first day. So actually probably putting that on their website as saying that we are, working towards becoming better at circular economy, sustainability, etc., it's a great added value for someone who wants to be on the team and wants to be part of a bigger mission, because we all are mission driven. We want to be part of something bigger, and that core value is something that comes up, as you said, for young people, but I think in general for many people today who wants to be part of a
Definitely,
project.
definitely.
Great advice.
If I just may add one more thing,
Yeah.
actually talking about the regulations and a little bit international level, even within European Union, there is a specific legislation, and specifically in quite some countries, it starts to be implemented more and more. It's actually important that the procurement, so the services and products that the larger companies are buying, is supposed to be at least 10% having environmental impact that's positive, or reused materials, for instance. So if you can really prove that you nicely fit in those criteria, it's actually your competitive advantage. And saying that doesn't mean that you have to be consulting on environment, or that you're actually creating a product that is like fully circular. Whatever you do, you can take some steps already today, and you can add tomorrow perhaps even more.
Yes, great. And also, I mean, as I see as something that comes to my mind as that, when it comes to meetings, having people to travel over, taking flights. I mean, I've heard so many times consultants having to go to another country to have a meeting in person because it's old school. And I believe that somehow with remote work, and this year has taught us that actually Zoom works perfectly fine, and we can have those meetings, very important meetings, also on Zoom, that we might not even need to travel. And that's something I really like to practice myself, is that, do I really need to go somewhere to have this meeting, or can I stay where I am? Is this really, important? Another thing that came to my mind and I want to share is that a lot of, thought leaders and people who have a mission, they want to create their own conference, they want to create their own retreat, and there is a lot of room of improvement when it comes to sustainability and being, working with the circular economy. Do you have any good examples of, or maybe you have some clients you work with who created events, and how can you make them more sustainable or circular?
Yeah, let me just be quite specific. Yesterday, I was talking to an amazing person called Evelyn Mora, who is also CEO of the Helsinki Fashion Week. And
Oh,
maybe some of you caught it, and maybe not yet, but it's absolutely fabulous, because those guys created a digital experience for the Fashion Week. So we're
wow.
talking here digital catwalks, we're talking here people attending as avatars, digital village. And the footprint per person, as I learned, was less than 1 cup of coffee per person. And of course,
Wow.
as you, Daria, also pointed out, the fact that nowadays we don't need necessary travel. We can just attend all those beautiful conferences online.
Yeah.
That also opens up the possibility for more people to join, first of all,
Yeah.
and people to join even from completely different parts of the world. It's also making those conferences more accessible.
Yes.
And in the end, that's what we want. We want more people to gain the knowledge. We want more people to get the inspiration, share their insights.
Yeah.
And I do believe digital is definitely something enabling that. And
Yeah.
if one of the listeners are thinking of making actually a physical conference, a physical meeting, then be very clear on why it's needed to make it in person. What does this mean for you? Of course, and we all know that meeting people face to face is still beautiful. It comes with different advantages as well. However, right now, considering the digital part is very crucial, and I do believe very beneficial. But
Yeah.
if you're really very keen to have in-person conference, think about, okay, do I have to print those old school badges and every single one needs to go into a plastic one? What do I
Yes.
do with all the waste that's being created? Can we maybe, instead of having water fountains and those single-use plastic cups, can we have or can we ask people to already bring their reusable bottles? Because I see quite often at a conference, if they're thinking, okay, we want to be more sustainable, so let's provide kind of like a goodie bag with reusables.
Yeah.
But then many people might already have their reusable cup or their reusable bottle. So you're just giving them more of something than they really need.
Yeah.
I would suggest offer it for smaller price. So it's a little bit like subsidized from your side or from the sponsors, or just communicate very clearly, guys, bring your own. We won't have single plastic cups. You need to have your own bottle to refill your drinks. That
Yeah.
would be, for instance, a huge, huge, huge impact. Then, like, what do you do with all the waste, right?
Yeah.
Many conferences are having a lot of exhibitors or people who have all the different leaflets. Can this be done digitally, for instance? So instead of
Yeah.
having a leaflet and a brochure, can we scan a code and get it straight into our mobile phone where we know it won't get lost? We're not creating paper waste. And also, like, all those free gadgets, are they really necessary? Like
Mm.
everyone handing out
Yeah.
like pen with their own logo. There's so much that can be done. Think
Yeah.
about what's the energy you're powering the venue. What's the venue where you're having this conference?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, if you need something to buy because the agency you rented for whatever reason just doesn't have it, like, can you maybe rent it from somewhere else? And then again, who do you work with? Who are
Yeah.
those people providing you the service of helping with a catering, helping you
Yeah.
with the furniture? And yeah, like, can you maybe look into a scheme to at least um, somehow balance out the CO2 that is being produced by all the flights people have to take?
Yeah.
Can you make it climate neutral? There's
Yes.
so many ways.
Amazing. And I mean, I absolutely love this. And for the ones listening, watching, don't feel that you need to do it all. And don't feel that you have, because sometimes there comes a pressure with like, I want to do it right. So we almost feel like, oh my God, all of these things that I'm doing wrong. So the intention of this episode is not to give you any guilt or bad feelings, to show you what's possible. So all those examples, take what you can, start to say that, okay, that thing I heard about clothes, that I can do. Or maybe, yeah, I can stop having those in-person meetings and start having more Zoom calls. Use this as a brainstorming session for you to explore it and start to get used to using it yourself. I really want to insist on that, because many times sustainability and circular economy or other things, when it comes to having core values and having strong commitment to improving, we want to go away from guilt. We want to go away from that thing that you are not good enough. It's not that. It's that if this episode is really for you to say, I want to explore, I want to do more, or I want to do differently. It's really, use it as that, because that's really important for me, that not to put more guilt into the world, but put more inspiration to the world and say, those are the actions. When you listen to this, when you go back, when you maybe stop, write some notes. Andrea has been sharing some amazing tips and advice on how you can get started. It's very practical, it's very easy to apply. So please use this episode as an invitation to explore. I really want to insist on that. Would you say that that's a good way to go about it, Andrea?
I think that's a very good way to go about it, because of course it can be overwhelming, and when people are
Yeah.
overwhelmed, they refuse any action
Yeah.
whatsoever. They get stuck, so to say. So indeed, like, I do believe there's so much all of us can do.
Yeah.
At the same time, I do believe you need to believe you can, because you
Yeah.
can if you really want to.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
start with something, perfect it, make it so super normal, new normal for yourself and for your company, that you will be able to start adding more. This is exactly why it's necessary to do an assessment to see where you're right now. What's
Yeah.
your footprint in terms of water, waste, CO2 emissions, energy you're using, pieces of clothes? When you fly, you are obviously having quite a large footprint. So really
Yeah.
think about that, assess your clients, and then start thinking like, okay, what is it where I would like to get, where I would like to get within the end of this year, where I would like to get in 5 years. And then
Yeah.
also think about, do I maybe need a help? Who could help me with that? As for
Yeah.
good news, you would have this conversation 10 years ago, it would be very, very different, because people will, we're still figuring it out. And nowadays there's way more resources that can help you with that. Some of them are even for free. There's so many blogs, so many articles that can give you quite a good idea how you can go about it. And also, let's not forget, creating a habit out of something really takes some time. According to the latest studies, it's actually 66 days. So it's
Yeah.
not 21 days anymore, not 30 days. It's really 66. But
Yeah.
I do believe everyone can do something.
Absolutely. I would love to hear if you have any stories of, like we all have our stories of success, or clients who just went from not really knowing how to do it to making a huge impact on their team, on the way they're showing up, on the way they are integrating circular economy and sustainability into their business. Do you have an example of a consultant or expert or thought leader that you can think of, that you worked with or of, that has really integrated that? That would be very inspiring.
There's so many. I'm really, actually, my challenge is like who to pick. But let me give you two examples, literally from the tip of my head. To
Great.
everyone listening, we were not rehearsing this.
No, we're not rehearsing.
This is a beautiful surprise question. Talking about small one, there's, for instance, this woman called Sarah Todd, actually, and she wanted to be a fashion designer when she was younger. She's still super young. And then she was thinking like, okay, but there are enough designers and there's at the same time like all this crazy amount of clothes. And she's been moving from one country to another and had a little suitcase. And this is where she came up with the idea, how about we would be able to rent our clothes instead of constantly buying? So she started her beautiful, wonderful startup called Palanta. It's based here in the Netherlands. And she even went a step further than typically the libraries of clothes would go. She decided she only wants to have sustainable clothes available there.
Wow.
So that way you are basically able to rent the clothes for 2-week period or longer. You pay, of course, like certain fee for that. You can rent something else the next week. It's not based on regular subscription. So you can actually decide like, this month I got this budget I would like to spend. Yeah. Maybe next month you got higher budget, maybe smaller. You can decide also depending on the events you have. They are having also a lot of like daily wear clothes. And on the top of that, they're combining it even with conscious events, teaching people how to take care of clothes, their clothes, how to shop in their own wardrobe. What is sustainability, why it's important. So it's kind of like a beautiful holistic concept that she came up with. I think that's absolutely, absolutely wonderful. And of course, talking about the large corporates, that's very good news. There are quite some. I would like to use example of Philips, which is a Dutch large corporate operating in the field of healthcare. Maybe some of you know Philips from the user products, such as like toothbrushes or thermometers. But of course, they're also designing large MRI machines, so literally brain scans, saving lives all around the world. And they also started to play with this idea. And I absolutely love the way they're taking this step further. They set quite clear goals of what they would like to achieve. So those last years, they had a goal that they would like to achieve 12% of their sales, of their revenues actually, by year 2020. And they were able beautifully, perfectly reach that. And they took even a more bold step and set it to 25% for year 2025. Wow. And to some people, it might seem like, okay, 25%, is this a lot or not? Well, that's absolutely bold, and it's a fantastic goal. You have to realize that on a global scale, according to the Global Circularity Gap Report, the world is only 8.6% circular. Just let this figure sink in. That means there's over 90% opportunity to make it more circular all over the world. So such a huge opportunity. And of course, it's different in different countries. It's for good news. Netherlands is almost 25% circular. There are some countries that are obviously way less, but also Netherlands, for instance, has a goal to become 50% circular by year 2030 and then 100% circular by 2050. European Union has some beautiful goals, and wherever you are, there's always a city or organization or perhaps even your own country that has some wonderful goals. So we need to set goals because they're holding us accountable and also push us a little bit further.
Absolutely. I love that. And it's interesting the numbers you mentioned, 8% and 25%. I'm not surprised. Netherlands has always been an inspiration in terms of sustainability. I grew up myself in Sweden 15 years, and Sweden is also a country where it's almost part of our culture. It's almost like it's part of from very young age in school, university, in our conversation, there is a real connection with nature. And I think that's something that we didn't talk so much about today, but for sure nature and connection and education in general, like we can bring so much into schools and into so much into the conversation we are having, and just the way we are approaching that as not something that is out of this world, but it's part of us. And that's what I've seen just from my personal interpretation, and my feeling is that Sweden is really good at educating that as being something completely normal. It's not something exceptional. It's part of who you are, the sustainability, circular economy, and part of project that you're, building projects, stuff like that, apartments. So for sure. I mean, it's just so great. I'm really grateful for you taking the time, Andrea. If we would have a final advice for our audience who are listening or watching this episode, is there something that you would like to tell them? Now, if there's only one thing you could tell them that they could take away from this episode, what would that be?
Yeah, I wanted to understand that sustainability is not something that is a trend. It's actually about our planet, and the planet is here to also help us thrive in our life. So we need to take care of it, because how we take care of our planet, this is really reflected how we take care of ourselves. It's closely linked to our health. So we have to, and I do believe we can. So please start with action today.
Yes, that's a great advice. And Andrea, for the ones listening and watching who would like to learn more about you, where could they find more information about your amazing work with Mission C?
Yeah, I would highly suggest to connect to me actually on LinkedIn. This is where I'm quite active, and I do believe I'm going to be even more active in the coming weeks and months. And then, of course, there is always Instagram account. It's at Andrea is Turning Green. We also do have our Mission C website, which is missionc.nl. We're currently working on it, so it's to be updated soon. Yeah, would be very happy to connect and discuss with anyone who's interested to learn more.
Amazing. I will put all the links below in the show notes and in the description below so you can check it out. Guys, for the ones listening, thank you so much for tuning in. Do make sure to integrate that. My advice to you is take a second after this episode, just sit down and reflect on what is a self-assessment that you would like to explore. How could you, from upcoming 24 hours or maybe a weekend, just reflect on, take some distance from what you're doing and reflect this. How could this be more sustainable? How could this be more circular? Is there something I can do? Like, it's almost always about the small tweaks and the small changes that becomes the big difference. It's like a drop of a lot of small changes that comes all together. So we can all do something, and this is why I wanted Andrea to come on board today, because I truly believe as a mission, like as a visionary, as a thought leader, it's part of our values and core values to also make sure that the ripple effect that we create is something sustainable and aligned, and we have so much power in our creation to actually from day one integrate the sustainability and integrate the circular economy. It can really be part of something. You don't have to be a big company. You absolutely don't have to wait to make it possible. So make sure that no matter if you're hiring, if you're creating your events, the way you're showing up, the clients you're choosing, there is so much you can go on from this episode and explore. And we have Andrea's given so many great advice on where you can start. So explore that, just really explore this stage. Thank you, Andrea, for coming on the show. I am really grateful for that. And until next time, for the ones who listened, until next time, please subscribe, please comment below, and please comment below, what is the first action you will take? Actually, that's what I want you. I want you to think right now, from everything you heard, if there's one thing that you will do, what will that be? Write that below, because we're going to be accountable for you. For the ones who are going to see in the comments, they're going to see and we're going to keep you accountable and going to keep you and going to support you, because you are inspiring others by sharing what you're going to take from this. Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you so much, Daria, for having me, and good luck, everyone. You got this. All the best.
Absolutely. Bye-bye, everyone.